Hi, my name is Mark Monlix, and you're watching another episode of Epic Sketch Time. This is my studio in Tacoma, Washington. I'm a freelance illustrator, and I do a couple of web comics called The Return of Stickman and The Comic Critic.
And I'm Crystal Rollins, broadcasting from my janky little studio here in Renton, Washington. And I am drawing birds for the Bird Brain Kickstarter that I completed back in March. And I do a couple of web comics. I work on Jacosha with Emily Gillis, and I do a comic called Aspect.
So tell us more about your Kickstarter project and how you're getting along with it. And I know what you came in, how much percent funded?
I think I hit 600 because my initial goal was $300 and I made $2,050. I ended up losing about 100 due to backers who either didn't put their cards in or decided they didn't really want a bird after all. Sucks to be them. So yeah, it's about 6 times the original amount that I requested. And I kind of figured and hoped I would get a higher amount, but I was definitely pleasantly surprised by the total amount I got. Not quite as much as your Kickstarter, but plenty to do the job. Like, I'm still going to be able to do the book. I'm able to do the illustrated book collection of all the birds. I was able to bump up the postcards so they're on nice, like, felted art paper instead of just being like cheapo, glossy postcards. I'm going to do 100 birds instead of just as many as people backed. And I should have, it gave me enough money that I was able to buy some more markers so I can keep the markers I have in stock, because holy crap, these are really running through my marker supplies. Like, I bought like 6 refill colors because I've already pinpointed certain colors that I use way more often than other colors that I had just been draining with doing these drawings. So it helped me like restock my supplies so I can keep working on them. And it meant I did more birds for the Kickstarter, which is kind of kicking me in the butt now because it's a lot of birds to do. And the illustrated book, but that one I kind of budgeted initially. Like, I asked for the 300 minimum just to get some sketches done and to cover like the base costs. But my real intent was the book. So it was a stretch goal, but like it was kind of the goal I was hoping for and like kind of planning everything around. So it's really nice that that actually came together.
And I see that Bill has joined us. Bill, why don't you do a quick introduction on yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Morse. I do a webcomic called Rhapsodies. I'm a freelance illustrator and cartoonist who does that. And I was having a wonderful comedy of errors for the last 15 minutes.
The way you said that, like, who does that? It sounded like you were like, yeah, I draw a webcomic. Who does that? And I know that wasn't your intent, but it was funny at the time. Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I had all my eggs in a row for once, and it looked like I was getting in just 5 minutes, which was a record. And then it kicked me off, and then I went through it again, and it kicked me off a second time.
The words "a record 5 minutes" makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
That's like, I think it didn't take me that long to join a chat room back in the dial-up era of the 90s.
You are so comforting.
So, Bill.
Sorry, dude. Shit's jacked.
I know you have a new computer, and I'm pretty sure that you've done all your updates. Any idea what causes the problem? Are you trying to do it on a Wi-Fi, or?
I am doing it on a Wi-Fi, but wait a minute, no. I am doing it it's attached to my modem, but I don't know. I have to do, my hard drive is getting pretty full, which is one reason I think a lot of the sluggishness is occurring, but I'm not sure for certain.
So I'd like everyone to look at my screen for a moment. Do you have any idea what this wonderful creation is?
Lobster guy?
Oh,
This is a terrible horror movie monster called It Conquered the World. And when this thing finally emerges from the cave where it's been mind controlling people, I think it was the way it was its deal. You can actually see some. You look really careful over off of its butt. You can see a 2x4 that it's being pushed out of the cave.
Wow.
I was briefly getting it mixed up with that tree critter you showed in one of the challenges.
And it was also taken out. Pardon me. It was killed with the blow. Okay, supposedly this creature came from a fiery planet. That's the hard shell. And what happens? But a guy takes it out with a handheld blowtorch.
Not even a large blowtorch. A handheld blowtorch.
A handheld blowtorch to the eye. I'm sorry about that spoiler. I thought I'd just give it away for you now.
Ruining all the movies, Mark. All of them. Why? Oh God, why? You know who I just realized? I don't know why I didn't think of it for now, because like I backed the Kickstarter because I liked all the art, but we have so many playing card decks, I probably will never use it as playing cards. But I just realized like who I should give the playing card deck to is I should give it to my dad because he just watches like so many movies, and B, I know he and my mom loved sci-fi and fantasy movies for forever, and I know he's constantly referencing like older movies like from 1940s onward, and he would probably actually recognize a bunch of the stuff in the deck, unlike me.
I'm sure he would.
So here's like, I know a lot of people ask me how I actually lay stuff down, so
let's hold it up.
you switch over here. So this is like the preliminary that I've gone in with just Warm Gray 1, which by the way is one of the colors that I got a refill tank of, and I've already eaten like a third of the refill tank.
Oh, wow.
They're good for like 12 refills. So that's the equivalent of like I've killed 4 Warm Gray markers on this project basically. Except Copics are refillable, so yeah. Because the refills cost about the same as 1 marker, so they're, if you know colors you use, they're like the best investment for Copic markers, is to buy a refill bottle. But so like, I usually start in with like a lighter color to just get like the initial shapes and block in like areas where I want that color to fill up. So that's like the initial one on this little Merlin Falcon.
Oh. Cool.
Is something I'd never heard of. There's so many birds because I let people pick a bird that
You never heard of Merlins? They're freaking local.
I didn't. Well, okay, someone from Australia requested this, so I assumed it was local to Australia. I didn't know they actually had them around here. So
yeah, they've been making a pretty impressive comeback in numbers, mainly because of all the crows out here.
Oh, do they eat crows? Are they big enough that they'll actually go after crows?
No, a crow can take them, or they're smaller than a crow, but they. The thing is, falcons, or at least they, don't make their own nests, so they're nesting in a lot of old crows' nests, with which, if there's so many crows out here, there's a lot of primo real estate for them to exploit.
Gotcha. Have you heard of the osprey cam that's, I want to say, in South Carolina or somewhere?
I don't know about the one in South Carolina. I have a link to one in Hog Island, Maine. I
don't think this is that one. I think it's a different one.
Everyone knows that the hotbed of action for ospreys is Hog Island, Maine.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
Hog Island, Maine.
Yes. It's where the Maine Audubon camp is.
As you can tell, we are left speechless by that comment.
I mean, what do you say to that? Okay, there is an osprey nest under camera in Hog Island, Maine.
Yeah.
Enough said.
So,
I trust that Bill wouldn't lie about something like that.
So I'm guessing your osprey camera is a little bit more local.
I'd have to ask Craig. There's a guy named Craig in the Chicago sketch group that is nuts about birds. And he links the osprey camera every now and then because it's apparently at very high definition. So he loves to take screenshots from it because ospreys make some of the funniest faces because they have kind of oddly shaped skulls. But also he was the one telling me that I guess they're the same way, that they don't start out building their own nest. They tend to like take over an abandoned nest and build up from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of how they set up this camera, is that they found like an old nest that they figured would be big enough for an osprey family, and then kind of just like staked the webcam there and
Hoped for the best.
yeah, and staked webcams in a couple other places, and they're like, well, I mean, if we're lucky, one of these will get an osprey nest built in it at some point.
Yeah, and the cool thing, have you ever seen a osprey get into a fight with a heron?
I can't.
That sounds kind of like watching giraffes fight.
It's weird. The first time I'd heard about it before, but because it was from a children's book by this children's book, I thought it was him anthropomorphizing them, and then I actually saw it happen when I was painting a heron during a visit to my folks.
That had to be cool. I have not had many chances to actually draw birds in person.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of my birds, unfortunately, are from other people's photo reference.
I have friends that they like coming over to my house because I've got the noisiest yard in the neighborhood because of all the birds. I've got a rather large lot. I've got like 3 lots. My wife and I have been working at making it like a nice bird habitat, butterfly habitat.
Cool.
But this is about the quietest it gets during the year because it's spring and there's lots of food everywhere. People are buying bird seed and putting it out so they can pretty much pick and choose their supplies. And so I need to put out my bird baths to lure them back. If you can put out water and food and have nesting boxes, you'll get lots of birds. But we bring our bird baths in every year because we don't want the ice to crack the ceramics. So we were talking earlier, Bill, about before we went live, about places that take stuff to print. And Crystal was telling me that another option to Moo is a place called Cat Print. And I wish I had known it. I would have probably checked it out, that their printing costs for Moo does up to 25 designs on one side of a postcard.
Uh-huh.
Crystal was saying that Cat Print does up to 100.
I don't know if they have an upper limit. You just like supply a file, and they don't have anything saying that the file has to have a minimum or maximum number of pages.
Oh, well then I would question it.
I mean, also, if nothing else, you could go through Best Value Copy. They'll do 5x7 prints, and there's literally no maximum page count. They treat everything basically like a multi-page document print. And I've gotten 5x7 art through them before, and it was just fine. They even do I got ones on this stuff called Chroma Coat silk paper and it's like 15 cents a piece. It's really cheap.
I should have done that because,
Like I said, I know if it's like bulk shit from wherever the hell you want to send it. Like I have Excel sheets full of places to print at.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of my thing, keeping track of all this stuff. If I wanted to actually go somewhere local and get stuff printed, though, I would totally hit you up because you know all the local printers way better than I do. I've only gotten stuff printed locally on occasion because I don't have enough money on most of my projects to warrant either a large enough print run to make it worth it, or the kind of margins on my project to allow me to deal with most of the local printers.
most of the local big printers will encourage you even to come in and take a tour of their facility so that they can explain to you what all their printers are available and what they all can do. And once you realize what they can be done, you can do a lot more.
If you've got the money. Like I said, that's great if they can do spot gloss and they can do duplexing and can do yada, yada, yada. If I can't afford to actually hire those services, it's kind of a moot point for me.
Well, a lot of these places, they realize they have to compete with the larger companies. So it all depends. Some of it depends on whether or not they have to order. Most of these larger companies, they're set up to order paper that's very specific. But if they've got stock on hand, then that could save a lot of money. So if you talk to them, okay, what's in-house stock? What has to be ordered? What are my options there?
Yeah.
And you might find a creative solution. Like when I did my infamous squid posters.
You mean infamous? Those are one of my favorites of yours.
I know. I like that poster. I still have to find a spot for it. It's sadly rolled up because I don't have room for like even a quarter of the artwork I own.
So you notice that that paper has a really nice thickness to it.
Yeah, and it was like really glossy from what I remember. It's like very kind of liquidy feeling.
Yeah, and in addition, it was a oversized poster. It wasn't your standard size. It was fairly large.
Yeah.
The reason for that was we went in and we were talking to them about prices, and I brought up the subject of, okay, tell me what type of paper do you have lying around here? Because they had a guy come in, order the paper, and then cancel the print project, but they were stuck with this flat of paper.
Oh.
And I said, well, let's do a deal on that paper. Let's take a look at it. We went over and looked at it, and we went and visited the printer even before I started the project, because that's how I knew, okay, let's go with this larger size and work off this paper. So we were really excited about it, that we were able to, we got that paper for less than a cheaper quality paper that we were looking at, because the printer just wanted to, you know how much paper that is? I mean,
yeah, it was probably like a pallet sitting there kicking people in the shins every day on their floor somewhere. Yeah, we've had materials like that where I work, where we're like, can we just like really just like sell this to someone, please, or throw it out, because like people are literally crashing into it every day.
so where do you work?
I work at Rainier Industries doing art processing and graphic design for their art department for large format print and large format fabrication solutions.
Nice. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know a couple of clients that have requested we get like special paper, and then we use like a tenth of it, and then it just like kicks around because it's not a standard inventory item for us. And like we don't want to sell it off because like that client like is the one that requested it. So we're like, what do we do with this stack of fancy recycled cardstock or something? Like we have a couple clients that are like, oh, we can't use your paper. We don't know where it came from, and we have to be green. So you need to order this paper because this paper is recycled, and we know it's recycled, and it has some forestry certification or something that yours doesn't.
Yeah, while that is great, at the same time,
Did you reach Mark Mullets and Mullets?
I mean, the funny thing is our normal paper is also recycled. So we're like, guys, our stuff's already recycled. It's already green. We actually got awards from the city of Tequila for being the greenest company in the city. They're like, nope, not good enough. Use the stuff instead. We're like, yeah, fine if you're paying for it, I guess.
next thing you know, they'll be wanting something made out of hemp. Though for all
they would want that. They're that kind of client, but I think there is paper made with hemp, so that's not actually all that strange.
I mean, for all people waxing poetically about it, while I'm aware of the concept, I don't think I've ever heard of any brands beyond the stuff they sell at crafts fairs.
Yeah, hemp is not. It's really hard to get hemp to have fine grain, so it's paper especially. It's really not ideal for.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually felt hemp fabric that was fairly soft and fairly even grain, but I have not felt that often. Everything I've read about it is that one of the downsides of hemp is that it's just thicker. The fibers are just thicker, and trying to get like fine, smooth weave or rag paper from it is just really tough and works against the nature of the material.
So that conspiracy theory I always heard about with Hearst being behind the Reefer Madness thing because of paper stock is a whole lot of...
Yeah, no, people don't make paper stock out of hemp, at least not good paper stock. Most paper is made out of cotton or tree remnant. Linen is pretty common because linen you can get very, very fine fibers, and they get softer with use, which is really nice. A nice quality of linen.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take linen fabric and you sat there back and forth and just like wobbled the fabric back and forth like 1,000 times, it would be softer after you'd sat there and messed with it than fresh off of the loom.
Now, I always heard the conspiracy theory that it was the plastics industry that went after hemp because hemp was
nylon rope.
Yeah,
that's not a conspiracy theory. That is.
They wanted nylon rope to be the industry standard rather than hemp rope.
Yeah, and hemp rope is super durable. And the thing I've heard about hemp is that it's very, very weather resistant.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't rot as fast in salt water, which is why hemp rope has been used amongst sailors for centuries.
Yeah.
So you're thinking not a conspiracy theory?
No, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I mean, industries lobby for special laws to be made for them all the time. And I heard it from other historical sources that the plastics industry was one of the lobbyists against allowing hemp. Because hemp is still allowed. It's just there's some weird laws about like how much of it can be produced in a given region and like what specific products can be made from it.
So when I was living in Japan, I was biking along this is back in 1979. And I was biking along a hillside and I looked at the hillside and I was just completely aghast. The whole hill, okay, Japan is a very non-drug country, but this entire hillside was covered with pot plants, just right on the outside, right next to the highway,
Oh wow.
growing wild. Probably didn't have any flavor to it whatsoever, but because we're talking 6 foot, 8 foot high plants. And
I don't know enough about marijuana to know why that says it's not flavorful. So okay.
well, you actually have to breed marijuana to get a higher sticky bud.
I know I have heard from a lot of people that the overall THC content has gone way up in the past couple decades due to crossbreeding.
Oh yeah, not that, and the whole the internal spice.
Aquaponics?
Yeah.
Fact
Because rather than having them growing out in the wild, you reduce the size of the plant and concentrate on the growth on the bud rather than the size of the plant.
a lot of that's not the nutrients, but the light, by changing which bandwidths of color are in the light and the timing of which days certain colors appear, they can maximize the number of days that they're growing buds versus the number of days they're growing leaves. Because that's actually common to a lot of people that do intensive, it's not greenhouse growing, what's the word I'm looking for? Like indoor growing? Huh?
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah, hydroponics and other non-natural growth, basically.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was looking into it for a while because I try to sprout my own seeds at home, and that's a big deal because if you get the wrong color bands, basically your seeds will bolt or they'll just not grow well. Like, you can really F up your growing season if you get the wrong color bulbs.
Yeah, I worked in a lighting warehouse once where they had these really huge heat lamp bulbs for heat lamps, and my boss told me that a lot of people asking around were intending to use them to help grow their pot, which these guys being good Jehovah's Witnesses were against.
So my brother Randy, who was in the Navy and was stationed in Japan for a little while, explained to me that, over the decades, a lot of American soldiers had been stationed in Japan. And
To cut you off for a second, I figured I'd show off the midpoint of the drawing after I've overlaid some warm gray 5 for the dark sections, and I'm starting it on the inks.
Mm-hmm.
Put in like the basic shadows at this point.
looks delicious. I mean, looks nice.
Just imagining like deep fried falcon or something now. Like, oh, good.
When you were first doing these, I thought you were only going to be doing duotones. I thought it was going to be just 2-color birds.
As I keep telling people, that was the intention, and then I tend to get away from myself when I start really getting into drawing. Also, I found that I've been able to work faster over time, honestly. So I can do better coloring in the same amount of time. Like, I'm still using an hour or less per bird. They're just better drawings in an hour than I used to be able to produce.
Oh, speaking of which, I tell you guys I finished my sketch challenge for this month. I have them all up on my Facebook page if anybody's curious.
Oh, cool. All the fairy tales?
Yes.
Nice. I gotta take a look at those.
Have you been posting them on your blog as well?
Yes, I have. But I just to make them more visible, I also made a album for them in my main Facebook page. For the most part, I'm pretty happy with them.
I'll have to go and take a look at all of them. I'm pretty sure I've seen most of them while you were doing them. My wife sent me a text saying that so far so good, meaning that none of the protesters in Olympia are blocking the highways,
Oh, good.
which is what they were doing last year at prime time to get maximum coverage. They basically went to all the entrances and exits and shut down Olympia for a few hours. I think they tried to do the same thing up inside Seattle, but
Seattle already has all of their traffic blocked off at prime time as it is, so it doesn't need much help.
You'd notice.
well, I do know that the Seattle civic employees were told not to bother to come in. The only people that went to work today that worked for the city were security and bus drivers. Everybody else was told not to bother to come in.
Bus drivers make sense. Like, if all the roads are effed, like, you need more bus drivers than ever just to try and get people home with any amount of time.
So I have a wonderful late neighbor, and she doesn't get out. She has a hard time getting out because she's elderly, but she likes to play lottery tickets. So I go out and I get her some lottery tickets, and I get myself some lottery tickets. We made this deal, if she wins, I'll get 10 grand. If I win and she gets 10 grand, that way we can share the wealth. And
Nice.
I've been a little lax of late because I've been busy with other things. Haven't been buying lottery tickets, and she pays me with quarters. And the reason she pays me with quarters is for years she was asking people for quarters because she had 2 granddaughters and she wanted to give them all the quarters that were out there in collections. Of course, this meant that she got lots of duplicate quarters, which she didn't get rid of. She just kept adding more and more quarters into the pile, and then would only go in like every 3 or 4 months and see whether or not she got them all.
Well,
and would make no, couldn't remember, which quarters she got or which ones weren't gotten. But she gave away those gifts a couple years ago, and she's been looking for a way to get rid of all these quarters so she gives them to me whenever she pays me back for one of the lottery tickets.
So was this the state series and all that?
Both the state and the parks series.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen the park series.
Yeah, when they got done with the states, they started doing the park series. The park series, I wonder if I've got one. Somebody's lying
Yeah, they've been doing the park series for at least 3 to 5 years now. Yeah, they just kind of transitioned straight from states into parks without really much of a hubbub. They're just like, yeah, we're doing this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how much they've been doing it. I mean, I always remember how the bicentennial coins were such a big deal back in the day, to the point where I saved them whenever I found them, and now it's sort of like whatever, they're doing a new theme every time I blink.
I feel the same way.
You know what you don't see anymore? Dollar coins or 50s. And I'm talking about the big old dollar coins, not the Sacagaweas. Though the Sacagaweas now have various presidents on them.
Do you mean the Susan B. Anthony coins that they discontinued because every pop machine ever would confuse them with a quarter?
No, I'm talking about Sacagaweas, which are the gold colored ones.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, they still make those coins. It's just, they never really, people didn't really adopt them for common usage.
Well, the Sacagaweas, which are a little larger, and Bill, you were asking about the state ones. You can tell them the difference between the state and the park ones because the park ones have sort of like a ring around them saying which park it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I only come across the Sacagawea ones whenever I'm using the change machine at the post office. And I always feel weird having them on me because I worry that somebody wouldn't take them or a machine would mistake them for a quarter.
And then there are the $2 bills that I've had people refuse to take a $2 bill because that's phony. There's no such thing as a $2 bill.
I love $2 bills.
I knew that there's such thing as them, but I didn't think that they'd been minted for the last 2 decades.
Yeah, they kind of never stopped minting them. They just like never really make any big deal about them. They're a very weird sort of facet of the US currency in that way.
There was a recycling place down here that the guy had like the largest. He always gave $2 bills. That's what he did. Like never fives, never tens, just all these freaking $2 bills. So this guy is relatively cleaned up now.
So I'm nearly done with this guy. I think I'm going to add a couple little yellow accents just to pop out his beak and his feet because they just feel a little bit plain without that yellow.
That's a nice one. It's interesting. The ones that are out here are this relatively very dark phase, so that they almost at a distance almost look all black. But it's sort of like, but at the same time, you with Bird Book, and you know that they're the ones that everybody's heard of are almost as colorful as kestrels.
If you take a look at my screen, this is what my illustration for the
oh, nice
woods thing finally ended up like. Now, Stowe was suggesting that I limit my color palette more and that I put an overall tone to unite things. But he admits that doesn't really match my style per se.
I don't know. It sticks out nicely, not to mention considering you're essentially, this is a tribute to 50s schlock. The color palette on a lot of those posters were like that.
Yeah, I would have suggested the muted to like kind of pull everything together with a single muting tone, but I think it's also fun the way it came out. And I have to agree with Bill that like if you're going for cheesy old sci-fi monster flicks, like yeah, they did kind of like splash the color in a little too heavily, so kind of like right in your audience there.
And as I was explaining to Stowe, the main reason that I stopped at this point rather than, he made an excellent point and that certainly would have improved the image, but I ran out of time. I'm willing to put in more time than when I allocate for myself on things.
Oh, speaking of palettes, I have this sort of semi-done piece that I'm not completely sure of. Let's see where is it?
You looking for some feedback or something?
I'm mostly happy with it. I just wasn't completely sure about the rain effect I had for it. And where is it?
While Bill's digging that up, take a look at my screen. This is It, the Terror Beyond Space.
Nice.
Because just It was already taken.
Here we
Actually,
go.
it had been taken by a British film that is in my horror movie deck of cards. It was a golem. A horror movie starring Roddy McDowall.
Okay, here it is. I mostly used a muted green and blues for it, like Stowe's recommended.
Whoa.
Again, I'm not completely sure if the rain is working as well as I would have liked.
The rain is too dark.
It's really heavy over the image.
Yeah, that blackness, those black strokes. Yeah, those black strokes. If you leave them black, it's going to be too heavy. It's just flattening the image out so completely.
Okay.
I would make. Do you have those on a separate layer?
Yes, I do.
That was going to be my next question too.
Please give me some credit.
Okay, so I would turn those into, go into your levels and hit the level so it turns into blue, and then from there start dragging down the opacity on the layer so that you see a little bit of the black in the background.
Okay.
Would be my suggestion.
Okay, like so. Maybe not.
Big improvement. Could you say something and bring it back up so I can look at longer?
Something and bring it back up. And so here is the second try.
So how is the rain formed? Is that like a single layer that's set to overlay, or?
Yeah, I had it on. I originally had it on multiply. Oh, wait a minute. Where's that other one? Looks like I have more than one. Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Wow, yeah, that looks like it's really built up with a bunch of texture layers. Unless that's just doing some weird stuff.
Oh, okay, I see what I did. That was the one I had for soft focus. What's that? Okay.
Oh, you've got a soft focus thrown on there on top of the rain effect?
Yeah, just a sec. What's this other rain level coming from? Just a second. Now I have to check this.
I would laugh, but I've done this exact same thing with my files where I start piling up texture effects, and pretty soon I'm like, I don't know what any of these do. I don't know how I got into this.
Don't you guys believe in labeling? What's wrong with you people?
Labeling is for people that aren't in the zone. Pish.
Ah, there it is. Okay. Try that again. So okay there. And
so I feel like that one, that it's almost too fine of a grain of rain for how simple the illustration is. I don't.
It's funny. I've been looking up for different rain effects, and I don't want to do something like this long diagonal lines, but at the same time.
Well, and the problem is if you look up rain effects, you'll get everybody else's bad Photoshop work and not actually like reference to like real rain.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one. I looked. Most of the ones they had are way too light, sort of just enough to tell you that rain is happening.
When I do a rain effect, I found a really good tutorial way back when that I still use a lot, which is you make a black and white noise layer in Photoshop, and then you do motion blur to basically pull it out. And that gives you a nice amount of like scattering, like a linear scattering built from the noise effect. And then basically like expand it in or out using the scale up in Photoshop until the scale of the rain over your image seems about right, because that's kind of the sweet spot. And then go in and you paint the little, paint some occasional little bouncing splashes off of the roof or whatever object it's hitting first, because that really sells the rain, is the bouncing drops.
Right.
Because a lot of people just throw the rain effect over the top and they don't actually put any they don't put any little hand touches in there, and it looks very digital, basically.
Right.
It just looks like, I threw a rain effect on top.
Well, thanks. Definitely something I'll need to tweak a little bit more.
Where is my neutral gray 3? There we go.
It's 5:30.
Now, before you go and just hang up because your timer says to vamoose, I am basically done with this guy, so I want to show him off.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec. Put the little bit of yellow pops in there, did a little bit of shading right under his neck and his beak, and he's basically good.
Nice.
Sometimes I throw a background in, but for this guy, I think I'm just going to leave him as is.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, you've been watching another episode of Epic Sketch Time. If you would like to participate in Epic Sketch Time, please contact me via Twitter or through a comment in the YouTube video. This will be posted on our Epic Sketch Time community page, which is on Google+. Which anymore, I'm not even sure why I'm keeping that community page. I originally kept it so that I could do invites. Google Plus has really messed things up. Still, we use it as a way to store all the address for Epic Sketch Time. So contact me. We usually meet every Monday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. And I'll see you guys next week.
You have a good one.
Night.